It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. My name is Brian Wilson, and as always, I have with me my mocking co-host, Andy Grabner. How you doing, Andy?
Good. Just talking about mocking. Mocking services. I don't know why this just comes to mind, but for whatever reason, mockingbird, mocking services, mocking you. I have no idea why this came up.
You just had a brainstorm of mock.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Oh, good. I did ask you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. I thought you were saying that sarcastically. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So anyway, I was, one of the things, we have a lot of rabbits around here. I like to call them bunnies because it's cuter and they're cute little animals. And every day I find myself looking out the window at them, see them hopping around and trying to figure out what are they getting at? What are they trying to do? And I'm always making mental notes of what they're doing, and I'm like, this is really it's a really inefficient way to track their behavior and see what's going on and try to understand if there's any attack vectors of the neighborhood cat coming in. And it's reminding me of something I just can't put my finger on. I was hoping, Andy, you might be able to help me remember what this reminds me of.
This reminds you of observability.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe it would be, it would be cool if we would have an observability hero that could help us and actually shed some light. And maybe also tell us how we can apply the stuff we've been talking about for the last 16 years or 8 years on the podcast to not only, microservices, but maybe in a broader sense.
Be amazing if we could do that.
I mean, amazing. What if we just clap our hands and boom, look at that, we have a guest here on the podcast, Rainer Schuppe. Servus, Rainer.
Servus, Andy. And hello, Brian, and thanks for having me here. And double thanks to calling me an observability hero, which, well, I'm definitely a veteran in that space, doing that for 21 years officially for lots of APM companies. And unofficially for, I would think, 25 years. But that's stuff that you don't want to know about. That's like Stone Age. Manual observability with logs and Perl scripts to extract some kind of metric from that. That's, yeah, you could put that in a haunted house or something like that.
But, I had to call
nightmares.
I had to call the Observability Hero because guess what? You put it on your website.
Yes,
Observability Heroes.
He's very humble. Our guest is very humble, yes.
That's where observability heroes are made. I'm not saying I'm one, but I can help you to become one. That's that's also the name of the community that I just founded. And I hope it can be some kind of the Justice League or the Avengers for, observability. That'll be the goal. But it's a long way. And as you know, Andy, I mean, we know each other for 16 years or so,
Yeah, it's been 16 years,
You joined Dynatrace while I had my stint there. So after working for Wiley Technology with the first APM solution that uses bytecode instrumentation out there, I joined Dynatrace afterwards and then hopped on to other generations with AppDynamics and Instana at the latest. But what I really like is the OpenTelemetry now, which is kind of, should I say, is the common denominator for observability that we can all benefit from, and it is. I hope it will become a street name out there, and will make it easier to deploy observability solutions in organizations because everybody needs it. If you don't have it, you surely run into troubles at one point in time.
So coming back to the superhero kind of theme, is that basic? Does this mean the OpenTelemetry trace is the secret weapon or the secret craft of the superhero, or what makes a superhero? What makes an observability hero a superhero? What is it that you need to know? What are you teaching people in your in your classes. I know it, and it's been great to bump into you last week just by accident. Maybe a quick story for those of you, right? I've been fortunate enough to travel to Barcelona last week, giving a talk at a cloud native meetup about platform engineering. Posted on LinkedIn. All of a sudden, Rainer sends me a LinkedIn message. Hey, I'm just around the corner. I'm on Mallorca. And I thought, Mallorca is not just the next town over, but I guess geographically wise, it's not that far away. Right?
No, it's a 30-minute flight. It's an island, so I have to hop over. It's either a couple of hours on the ferry or just jump on a plane, get over to Barcelona. And guess what? Next week we have a CNCF meetup on Mallorca in a very nice location in Palma. So whoever is on the island and likes to know more about it's not specifically observability, it's CNCF. But I know that Pere is there, one of the Dynatrace engineers. And it's actually, again, like the one in Barcelona, sponsored and initiated by some Dynatrace folks. So, yeah. But what does it take to
those islands yet? Yeah. Sorry, answer your question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
I love Spain, so I wanted to talk about Spain, but we're not here to talk about Spain. So.
No, but you can come here anytime. My wife and I, we are having a co-working space, so we have a very good internet connection, a really good coffee, and a very relaxed atmosphere around. So as soon as you step out of the office, you're like in a 4,000 people city village in the south of Mallorca, and you just, everything goes away and then everything comes back. And for me, for example, the idea about Observability Heroes, because when I go back my father was a mechanic and he repaired things. And that's what people applauded him for, because he had the endurance to look for stuff that others didn't. So he was like, this was his passion, like finding the root cause of a problem and then fixing it. And I have inherited that. And because I never give up when somebody presents me with a problem, it's my obligation to solve it. Unless it's really that bad that I said, sorry, I'm the absolute wrong person for that. But as long as I see a chance that I could solve it, I'll give my best. And being 30 years in the IT industry, I have seen everything. I started at the end of a hotline, answering end customer calls, then did some operations for PDP-10 mainframes from DEC at that time, which were CompuServe was running on, and then went into consulting, architecture, and ended up in pre-sales for APM companies. And all the time, people called me when there was something wrong, because I had an understanding of all these systems. And what it takes to become an observability hero is basically you need to have an understanding of the systems, how they work, and then get your tool belt right. And that's different from organization to organization. You need different tools for, let's say the old ones with monolithic or 3 clear applications. And then for microservice, serverless, you need a different tool set. Generically the same, logs, traces, and metrics, but in different, how do you call it, Brian? Different flavors?
Yeah. Varieties, flavors, yeah.
And what I teach people in my coachings and the workshops is how to get where they want to be. And the first step is finding out where they want to be. Are they simply troubleshooters? Are they in the organization just to make sure that the operation doesn't totally break down? Or are they already in the forefront and establishing kind of a platform engineering type of thing where they need to get more people on board? Or do they need to do some troubleshooting first to get the funding for some wider observability? Because observability is basically what I've seen in the last 20 years is always an overlay function. It's a cost center. It's not something that you pay upfront for because you see lots of value. It's something that you need to pay for because, you just need it to make systems run. And if you need former times we called it a crit sit, a critical situation, to get the funding for your observability tools, that's something that's already good, but it's better if you get the funding up front because you can convince people that they need observability to make use or not to overpay in Kubernetes, not overpay in the cloud services. Because all of these microservices are nice to deploy, and hey, here, deploy there, and then at monoliths, you already started to throw hardware at performance problems. Oh, we run out of memory. Okay, well, put in more memory. Now, in Kubernetes or in cloud native deployed applications, it's kind of the same. You just don't notice it because Kubernetes takes care of that for you, and it can cost you an arm and a leg. So if you do it right, and that's also what I teach people, is you can justify the cost for observability with the cost reduction you have in the how should I say that?
Operational costs? Yeah.
Yeah, in preventing over-provisioning, which is something that lots of people do because, I'd say GCP does that for you, or AWS or Microsoft Azure. They do that for you as a kind of an operational security, which is nice, but, well, sometimes you pay through your nose to get that type of security. Mm-hmm. And that's where observability can help as well. But that's usually step 2. First step is we do have a massive problem somewhere. We need fast help. And then, well, where do we get the data from? And then people look around for, and you've probably seen this, Andy and Brian, as well, in the pre-sales space, these companies that want to run a proof of concept just to get your tool to solve a specific problem.
Mm-hmm.
and then you start selling. And
so,
yeah.
Andy, I was going to say, it sounds like the secret weapon then of the superhero is similar to Batman. It's the utility belt, right? You mentioned having the tool set, the belt, right, and also the passion, right? Now, Batman's a little dark there. We'll go, but he still has a passion for justice, right? And you mentioned passion, which I really love because I think a lot of people, when they're treating performance and observability as a requirement, they don't always do it so well. It's more if we need to get something in there, we have it, we have the check. But when you have A, the right tool belt, and B, the passion to make sure you're doing observability right, the passion to find ways to save money in the cloud or to increase performance and all that, that's when you can really take off and become that superhero because you're putting everything you have into improving the entire ecosystem, not only for the end users, but for the organization. And then that's when you end up looking like that superhero. And you feel like one too, right? If you don't have that, and any job you have, if you don't have that passion for it, you're just going through the day. Right? So I think we found the secrets. I think we found the secrets of being that superhero there.
Mm-hmm. I want to recap something quickly. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I always take a lot of notes when we have these podcasts, and then I use them to reflect afterwards, but also to write the summary. But I wanted to go back what you said earlier. You said traditionally the need for observability comes in because people are having a critical situation, a problem. Then get me any tool that I need to solve the problem. Cool, problem solved. Then the next step typically is, okay, how can we justify the costs if you want to keep the observability tool for longer? This is typically where we address the cost saving potential, right? Optimizing your systems, doing combining it with performance testing, fixing hotspots in your application, right sizing and everything like that. For me, the last step, and I think you mentioned this in the beginning, is then, however, how can we change the mindsets of organizations to think about the potential of observability from the start so that they actually can become data-driven companies? Because if I'm a new startup, I guess, right, and I have a product idea, I typically have assumptions. I have an assumption about how many people will use my product, how much money will I make. I probably also do experiments with my features that I put out there. And for monitoring and evaluating my assumptions and run my experiments, I need some type of data, observability data. And because we're all digital organizations, ideally, we get this observability data straight from the digital services. So are these the 3 steps, or are there also things in the middle? What's in the middle between I'm using observability for cost optimization and I'm using observability for really making strategic data-driven decisions? Is there any other reasons why people then would kind of use observability for something in between?
Probably many reasons, but I would say they are niche, and they all depend on the data. And thanks for reminding me. I mean, the biggest problem in troubleshooting is not having data. And that means if you put in observability when the problem happened, you're at a loss. You have to hope that the problem happens again. So having the data collected from the beginning gives you not only performance indicators and that you won't see in development or testing. I once gave a talk at a conference about the different types of performance problems, and they only reveal themselves usually in production. And this is what you cannot test, but you need the data. But you only know what data you need when you actually have the issues. So I think that's also one of the things that people have to realize, that it's a constant learning process. And that's not, let's say, a step. That's a learning step. You see, you have to constantly apply your know-how, your expertise to collect the right data and scrape the data that you don't need and find a good, the American way is probably saying solve the Goldilocks problem. Go with just the right, not too much, not too less. And this is for me in between step 2 and 3, but not in a thing that you can kind of learn and certify. It has to come from the inside, which is really hard to measure. And coming back to your question, other data security, observability gives you data about auditable data, about logins, about possible attacks that are happening, because suddenly you get a ton of 404 errors here on different endpoints, and you see, that could be an attack in there. So also securities, I mean, in our times, that's a big thing to think about. And a couple more that I just can't come up with from the top of my head at the moment.
Yeah, no worries. In your blog, if I look at, and folks, all the links, as always, you'll find them in the description of the blog post, but observability-heroes.com definitely gets you to the website. And then looking at the blog, I saw that, first of all, you did a good job with, explaining what is observability from your perspective. But then the next thing, and I know last week when we were in Barcelona, and you said, hey, let's give like another hour or two after the meetup and let's sit down with a beer, with a cerveza. And I tried to do my best in ordering everything in Spanish. Unfortunately, we ended up not dehydrated, but we had plenty of beers. But I remember you said, hey, this OpenTelemetry thing, and you mentioned this earlier, this is really something interesting. And you started your own OpenTelemetry journey. And you also started now to write a blog about your journey, right? You started, I'm looking at here, my OTel journey week 1. OpenTelemetry, as you said, is hopefully going to be an amazing tool for all of us to really enable developers, but organizations to get the data that they need, because they are under control on what type of data gets generated. I think there's also still a little bit of a misconception of what OpenTelemetry really is. This is where the educational piece come in, right? OpenTelemetry is not your magic. It's not a magic wand and you sprinkle over some stars and then everything automatically works and you don't need anything else. OpenTelemetry only solves the problem of what type of data do we capture, what type of insights do we want, but you still need to get this data to some endpoint, you need to store it somewhere, you need to analyze it somewhere. But OpenTelemetry, many people are walking through that same journey that you are currently going through. You're learning this new technology. What are your lessons learned so far? And what would you like people to take away from your learnings, obviously besides reading your blog series? But what else is there?
Yeah, OpenTelemetry is a good start. And as you said, it's all about data gathering. And that's my biggest learning. You need to have a good backend to analyze the data. So getting the data is one thing, and it's a big thing. If we have one common platform, that can gather the data in a specific format, and that's why context and like in the words, the right nomenclature is essential, so you can actually find the stuff in other systems. But that takes away a big chunk of work in actually getting the data. But then you have to store it, you have to analyze it, and this is where it gets tricky. And after working for 4 big APM companies, where we provided that, and now I have to actually hats off to all the developers who stored that stuff, who made it easy to analyze, easy to go through and to query all of that stuff, because this is what's bothering me most in OpenTelemetry. And it's not what OpenTelemetry is all about. That's what I realized. It's not about analyzing the data. It's about gathering and then use whatever tool you need to get your job done. If you're an operator, you go with Grafana dashboards and you put the metrics in there and get your alerts. If you're a developer, you want your fine-grained service traces and all of that to dig into how your stuff actually works and maybe make it perform better. When you're testing QA, you want to see where are the things that need to be optimized or just give it a go to release in production or not. But that means you also need different visualization. And this is what OpenTelemetry doesn't help you with. This is where Dynatrace, Instana, Honeycomb, all of the others out there help you to do that work. And it's seriously, and I looked over, and it's open on the internet, so this is no trade secret, the installation of the Instana backend. When you read the documentation how to install it, you realize that this is a thing consisting of 30 different services with 3 databases. So there's Cassandra, there's Elasticsearch, there is ClickHouse, there's also, it's no Postgres anymore. Cockroach was also, well, some SQL database, but that's only for, some auditable stuff. But all these services that have to work together, this is so much know-how, so much expertise flowing into it that this is the really hard part then for you to implement that in your organization. And if you're doing your first steps, that's fine. Take Jaeger, take Zipkin, take all the others, take a Grafana or Elastic, and get your feet wet. And if you're fine with administering that stuff, if you're fine with administering an Elasticsearch cluster, a ClickHouse cluster, maybe on Kubernetes, then okay. But if you're not, you can still have the OpenTelemetry data. You don't have to touch that, but you can switch your backend. And that's what I really love about OpenTelemetry, is that you don't have to touch that stuff because it is all the same format. It's a format that most of the commercial vendors out there support at the moment, some more, some less. And this is where I would like to see OpenTelemetry go, really. You have the foundation right. And then with trial and error, you find the tool that you want. Some like when you take a look at the Datadog, it's a lot of stuff that you could do with Datadog, but you have to have the passion for, playing with it and running the queries and putting the dashboards together and all of that. If that's your passion, if that's what you like to do, go with it. If not, go with Dynatrace, go with Instana, because they do a lot of things automatically that you don't have to do. And that's basically the biggest learning. The other learning that I had, and I still have some AWS instances running with FluentBit, and that's not OpenTelemetry, but I'm trying to get syslog data from 2 servers that I have here in our co-working space to report into a collector, and I'm miserably failing. I don't know why, but I'm just, it is some fickly work that's going on in OpenTelemetry. It's a good start, but if you go with one of the vendors, you can have a positive experience within half an hour. I always liked when I was in Instana that we could set you up in a Kubernetes cluster in 5 minutes. The agent was discovering everything, and then boom, then this was just jaw-dropping, like 6 years ago. And this is not what you're going to have with OpenTelemetry. Definitely not. You're going to have a lot of work. You pretty much understand what the stuff is all about, but it's a lot of manual work. And if you want to sell this to your bosses as a free solution, it may be free of license costs, but it's not free of work, and it's going to be a lot of work that you put into it. So there's a lot of automation already going on, but still you have to get familiar with that, and then of course you have to store the data somewhere, and this is where also some costs are coming towards you.
Yeah,
And
I think one of the important differentiations you're making there, at least if I look at the the English definitions of the words, is the difference between data and information, right?
Yes.
Data is your supermarket full of food, right? And as you're talking about, you want to maybe go in with your shopping list and buy the food that you need, which is selecting which data you want to collect, but you still don't have the recipe to cook a meal. Right, and you have to turn that data into information, which is useful, and that's where those backends come in. And yeah, I agree, it'd be awesome if something like OpenTelemetry can start expanding into that section. But that's where that backend comes, right? And I even forgive, not that I forgive, but like I understand, like OpenTelemetry has not been around for very long, right? Most of us vendors, in terms of figuring out how to make it easy, what data is relevant to collect and all that. We've all been doing this for years and years and years. I think the strides that OpenTelemetry has made in such a short amount of time is definitely something to marvel at. But it's only been a few years, and once you have a community of people, everyone putting their input in, now you have to not battle, but everyone has to agree upon what to do, and it gets sticky. So yeah, it will be really, really interesting to see what happens on that side over the coming years, to see it get refined and more complete. And I believe they're even doing a lot of work on ease of deployments, right? There's some of these automatic, a lot of the projects have these automatic instrumenters built in.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it really comes down to that information versus data. And what are you going to do with that data when you have it? That's the key.
That's actually I have two blog posts that I'm working on right now. One is called Data versus Information, or Data and Information. It's exactly that point. And the other one is about how easy it is to monitor and how hard it is to diagnose the root cause.
I mean, if we all go back to 3-tier architecture, it'd be a lot easier, right?
Yeah, but even then, even if in a microservice architecture, it's easy to spot the problem. It's easy because there are only two symptoms. It's either too slow or it doesn't work at all, throws an error at you. And, well, bonus is it's slow and throws an error, which everybody is annoyed of. But those are the things that you alert on, that you monitor, and that's kind of easy. You have some baselines, you have a threshold, some experience from the past, and you apply it to a service. This is all done automatically, and then something turns red. Then now the hard part comes. Taking the data that you need to get information about where's the root cause of the thing, who is supposed to resolve that problem. And once you nail that down, at Wiley Times we called it the blame game. And we actually had a blame game, which was like a spinner. And then you just flipped or spun the error. And it turned out to be database operators, developers, And that was as effective as a blame game is, because, you need data and then you need information out of that. So monitoring, finding out that you have a problem is easy, but then comes the need for the information to resolve the issue. This is the hard part. And this is where the backends are needed and the visualizations according to your job. And with the whole DevOps SRE thing, it's a different job description that you have there. You need different data and especially a different communication culture. And that's what during the meetup last week, Almenuda said, I was able to follow the Spanish a little bit because she was very fast. She said, DevOps is cultura, which means DevOps is the culture. It's not a question of the tools that you have. It's a question of how you're dealing with that, and then you pick the right tools. Coming back to the tool belt, if you don't know what tools you need, you throw a batarang at, to open a fridge. A fool with a tool is still a fool. So it's your way of doing things, the way your organization does things is demanding the tools for that. That's why OpenTelemetry opens a lot of different LAs up, but you have to choose, and you have to choose to what is the best for your job and the strategy that you're following.
Rainer, I'm just looking at your website again because you are offering different types of boot camps, right? That you have. And I remember you told me about this. You made it very appealing to fly to Mallorca and then spend some time with you. And I also really like the different models that you have, where you basically also get a coaching session when you have like a vacation camp. So, folks, if you are listening to this, really check out observabilityheroes.com, check out the boot camps. I know a lot of organizations are doing these workation camps where their teams and kind of get together in a remote location. You're in Mallorca. You're providing not only a beautiful island, but also the infrastructure that people need. You also provide them then with your coaching on observability. My question to you is, if you do these workshops on observability and people come to you, are there any kind of big revelations where you say, man, why are we going down to these basics? Are there certain very basic things that people haven't thought about at all when they come to you around observability? Or do people already come to you because they already know they need observability? Or do some people come to you and then are completely like blown away because they never thought about these things?
It's all of the above. So there are people who want to know about observability in general. They know that they need something, but they have no idea where to start. And for those, of course, we go through the basics. But even the ones that are already, let's say, senior or advanced observability practitioners, they sometimes need to widen their scope because they work with a solution or with their setup for quite some time, and they want to expand it. And every time I switched my companies, it was mainly for the reason that there was a new technology coming. So be it microservices suddenly implemented and was a pain to deploy other solutions because there were so many installations to be done. So automatic would be nice. It also boils down to what are we doing. For example, we need tracing. Tracing needs instrumentation. Instrumentation is added code to the applications. And it always sounds so, oh yeah, we just instrument that. But you forget that you add code. And if you add code to the wrong part of your code, then you can add a massive overhead. And that can be very quick. So during also Dynatrace times, we killed systems with one wrongly instrumented method. But that was before we also had all these automatic ones, so we had to search for stuff. That's all way better. But when you do custom instrumentation, you should know how this is applied so you can make a good decision what to instrument and what not. What to instrument for production and what you do in development, and maybe find a feature flag for your observability to have this turned on only in development and occasionally, if need be, turn it on the fly in production. But this is what also long-time practitioners sometimes don't realize, what overhead actually means. Because it's multifaceted. That's using additional CPU and adding to the response time is one thing, but having shared resource contention, deadlocks, and other things is also something that you could easily do when you apply it the wrong way. So these are the things that we talk about, and that I want to be sure that people understand that, because then they can make the right decisions going further. So if I talk about the basics, I make sure that people have a need or, should know about them and just checking where they are, which is something that I learned from my hotline days. When people came to me with problems, I first established a baseline. What is their level? Is this the grandma that wants to send an email to their the grandchild over in Europe, which I had actually, or is this someone very versed in technology who just needs to get desperately online in a very remote country somewhere, and his modem or her modem didn't work? Different levels. I asked different questions, and that's what I check first. Where are we, and then we move on from there. And the as you said, the vocation camp. That's 1 week in our co-working space with very good connection, so you can do your regular work and you can focus on observability if you can't do this in your office at home, because people come in and, the regular words in a day's work is a lot of people coming in and asking, how are you doing? So you can focus on your project and you can ask me. That's part of the offering is there are some coaching hours in there or mentoring hours. You can ask me about specific problems. We develop a strategy together, or I'll give them something to do. By the way, I'm also financing the AWS instances needed for that. So if you need a big server to test something out, not a problem, that's included. And then we check where everybody is, so that at the end of the week, they know either the basic concepts of observability or they have a good idea about the strategy that they're going to implement when they're back in their office.
Hey, Brian, what do you do next week? Shall we sign up for a vacation camp?
Oh yeah, absolutely, please.
Yeah, there's are you based on the East Coast, Brian?
No, I'm in Denver. I used to be in New Jersey, but I'm now in Denver, Colorado, and smack in the middle. Well, not smack in the middle, but no ocean near me. I used to have an ocean near me.
I know. I've been there.
Yes.
Back at Wiley times, because my boss was residing there. Actually, he came from Boulder, but he showed us around Denver. Oh, nice town, but very far from the sea.
Yes.
No, there is a direct flight from New York to Palma de Mallorca. So, but not from Denver, unfortunately.
Yeah, the closest I've been to the islands was Tarifa and Nerja, but never to the islands themselves.
Yeah,
so, folks, listeners, if you think this is a commercial for Mallorca, well, it sounds like it, and it's a really beautiful place. We will add some links to the description. Rainer, what you said earlier was really good, because we great tools. What's the saying? With great power comes great responsibility. Right? With the power of instrumenting code comes great responsibility. And we as an industry, we have, like in your case, 20 plus years of experience of what it takes to bring down an application with bad instrumentation. In the AppMon days, we called it the shotgun instrumentation, or even if you are instrumenting a method that is called a million times, then of course the relative overhead becomes really big, and then you can really bring down systems. And I also feel that it needs more education. Fortunately, the tools get better, and I'm pretty sure there will be more built-in features in OpenTelemetry, more tools for developers that actually make them aware of the potential impact. But folks, if you're listening, think about this is code where it only collects a little bit, but it gets executed every time this method gets executed. And this data is then sent off to your OpenTelemetry endpoint or your OpenTelemetry collector. There was the additional overhead that you mentioned. The overhead is not just in the running thread. It's on the network, or first in the memory, because the data needs to be buffered. Then it needs to be sent over to the next component. This might be a collector or directly the backend, but it means network overhead. So yeah, think about, there's a lot of things, and there's reasons why organizations, like you mentioned it, right? The New Relics, the Datadogs, the Instanas, the Dynatraces of the world. We've been doing this for many years, and we had all these lessons learned, and this is why I think we're doing a good job, and you should still look at what we've done. And maybe we should, uncover and like repost some of our old blog posts from back then, because I'm pretty sure there's many blog posts we wrote about, proper instrumentation, best practices, worst practices on instrumentation that people should look into it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And instrumentation is one thing that can kill an application. If you kill it once, then your management is going to be very wary of letting you do this again. Mm-hmm. But as you also said, with automation, there is lots of things that you can just get out of the box, and if you don't mess with it, it's usually safe. But going back to our blog post, that's exactly what I did after our meeting. And there are some blog posts from me from 2010 on the Code-Centric blog, the company that I worked for at that time, about no time for monitoring. So if you don't invest time for monitoring, then you probably spend more time somewhere else. So, but also automation helps a lot in saving that time, getting it up and running in no time. And then another one was actually not from me, but from Fabian, who compared give a very good overview over sampling and tracing, or profiling and tracing, and the different overhead that is incurred there, and with some practical examples. But it's 14 years old, so it's probably on an old Java version that probably has that already optimized out. But I read today an article about memory consumption in OpenTelemetry in Java, where they have a new module that allows you to reuse memory, and it's not an immutable anymore, but it's a mutable object, and that basically reduces your memory impact of the agent or of the instrumentation to zero, which is massive when you have lots of, they have like Kafka, was it Kafka or Pulsar, Apache Pulsar with lots of topics, and each topic created one kind of metric, and that created a ton of objects in the memory, which then blew up kind of the JVMs when you monitored them. And now with this new, which is officially accepted, I think, by OpenTelemetry now in the Java SDK, with this new approach, it's basically zero, and this is gone. But this is something that you wouldn't realize until you have that problem, until you see what is happening here. Why is my JVM blowing up? It didn't do that before. Well, it's just the multiplication of things with the topics, and then the metrics that you get out of it. And this is just one of the things that make OpenTelemetry kind of that complex. On the other hand, if you don't deal with that, if you don't have queuing mechanisms, messaging systems with lots of topics, then you don't need to bother. And this is what we can talk about. And my approach was always, we start with your problem at hand, we solve that, and take the next step. We're not boiling the ocean up front if we don't have to, and get the results quickly in that week and make you realize what you actually need and get you successful with that, and then take the next step. And even then, if it's with that approach, you can get the most complex situation like handleable and easy to deal with.
Hey, Andy, I think I have a title for this episode. Observing observability. Right. This is all these. One quick anecdote I wanted to mention about the instrumentation. This happened in, I think, 2012. I'm not going to mention the vendor or the customer, but sometimes when observability takes down your system, even the most best designed ones, it could be revealing a core problem. So we went to a potential customer. They were complaining that login was taking like 6 to 8 seconds. Right, it was a really long login. It was a commerce kind of site. So we put Dynatrace on the system, and login went up to 15 seconds. And we're like, what the heck is going on, right? This was with auto instrumentation already done. This was beyond that. Well, it turned out that they were running upwards of 14,000 database queries upon login. So like any observability tool, you're going to be instrumenting do execute or whatever in the database to just track that bit, which is a standard normal thing. And I just remember it was really funny because they had a guy from the software vendor there. He was like, oh, I don't know. But we're like, yeah, this is the problem. You're running 14,000 queries. Of course we killed it, right? No matter what we do, that's just like, talk about instrumenting the wrong thing. I mean, that was the right thing, but because of their setup, it took it down. So we then tried to play that game of, well, not the game, but like, look, we didn't take your system down. Well, we did take your system down, but it's revealing what your problem is by doing that. But yeah, it can be really, really tricky in those situations.
Yeah. And
you just reminded me of another anecdote, just a quick one, where a vendor actually blocked our agent from working. So the customer, that was actually a third performer customer. So guess who was in there for monitoring? And they told us, it doesn't work. Let's put an agent in. Let's put, at that time, Dynatrace in. We did. And we found something. And they went back to the vendor saying, this doesn't look very good. Can you solve that? And the vendor came back like, how did no reverse engineering in our code? That's forbidden. And they were like, no, you don't. What? The next time we tried, they gave a patch and gave us a patch, and then we tried to put the agent in it. We got no results at all. And we found out that they actually stripped the minus agent path variable from the JVM options. So their code was rewritten to prevent any monitoring from with the Java agent. It was like, how desperate as a vendor must you be to do that? So
That's amazing.
And it also reminds me, and this comes back to the years and years of experience and how commercial vendors have optimized the systems, the database example, right? These problems that we then saw by capturing every single execution of these 14,000 database queries led to what we call database aggregation back then, where we, instead of capturing 14,000 instances of the same query, maybe just once, right? And these are things that I hope will also make it into every auto instrumentation for OpenTelemetry, or make it to the blogs about best practices, because this is things we need to avoid, because we've solved this problem. We've ran into these problems before and we've solved them before. Yeah.
Yep, we did. And this is something that needs to go into OpenTelemetry in the data gathering, absolutely.
Rainer, I fear we're closing at the top of the hour here from a recording perspective. And I think we did a good job in promoting Mallorca and your co-working space, your boot camps.
Yeah, I also offer that online if you're not getting the vocation approved by anyone. No, the thing is, my goal is to make observability available for everyone, to take it to the next level. So we cover the ground stuff, and then we care about the really, as a former colleague of mine called it, big, hairy, audacious problems. So get rid of the easy to solve issues and then focus on the ones that are really tough to solve, because it's much more fun. But having observability in all of the places. So I have my experience. I can share them. Of course, yeah, I can be hired. I can be bought, so to say. But it's also good to talk with you guys about how, because I was always seeing it through the same pair of glasses, as the Germans say, always from a vendor perspective. And now I'm getting this from the technology perspective, and this opens up a whole different perspective on the whole thing. And unfortunately, after 20 years, where I reached the same thing over and over again, you need data, you need observability, and you need the right data, and you need to turn it into information that solves your problems, whatever those may be in your role. It's still not in the mainstream. It's slowly getting there, but it's still not really there. And this is my mission, to get fundings for observability from the ground up, not as an overlay, not as oh god, this doesn't work. We have to throw money at it to make it go away, or make the problem go away. So yeah, and thanks for inviting me here. And as stated, there is a CNCF meetup in Palma next week. And also there is the Web Engineering Unconference in September, also happening in Palma. This is always a nice event. It evolved from the PHP Unconference to now everything around web engineering. It's a pretty cool event taking place in one of the hotels here. So the whole island is really good for IT people. We have a great connection. So enough of the commercial here. Yeah. Thanks again.
No, that's good. And talking about events, maybe one last thing, because this is a global thing. In the first week of June, I think it's actually June 6th.
I think this one, you're talking about an event. I was going to say, I think this one airs next week.
What I'm saying is that we have Kubernetes is turning 10 years. So we have Kubernetes birthday party globally. The main party will happen on the West Coast. But every CNCF, every cloud native local community is encouraged to run their own birthday bashes. I know in Barcelona, our friends from Lidl, from Schwarz IT, they are doing the birthday bash in Barcelona. We are hosting a party in Vienna in the Dynatrace office, and I'm sure many places around the world. So Kubernetes is 10 years old. It's no longer a baby, it's already a teenager. It's amazing.
Oh my God, it's going to be a rampage teenager?
Yeah, that's the question.
Puberty is coming. Oh my god.
Yes.
Shit, yeah.
Acne. I think at the parties you're going to have people walking around trading hors d'oeuvres and seeing if you can get the hors d'oeuvre to the right end destination point by passing it from person to person.
You mean you have to order your hors d'oeuvre with a YAML file?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, I hope people, if you ever wanted to get to Mallorca, I hope they get there really soon, because I think as a result of this episode, Mallorca is probably going to be the hot spring break type of destination for observability people. So before it gets overrun by technologists, if you want to see it nice, get there soon. Of course, your house is always open to anybody who shows up. If you just, give us your address on the episode, people can just freely walk in. No, I'm kidding.
When you take a look at the picture of the beginning, you see our roll up in the background, and that is our co-working space. And if people Google that, they'll find my home address. But we have locks and
and big dogs. Yeah.
Actually, just a cat, but yeah, he's fierce. Oh, he's fierce.
Cats can be scarier than dogs because you never know what they're going to do or what they're thinking. All right, Andy, any last words? Wrap up. All right.
No, all good. I'm really happy that after so many years we met each other again, and then that this worked out that well. So all the best with your making everybody an observability hero and making observability available to everyone. I think that's a really nice statement.
And if you can say observability 3 times in a row without twisting your tongue, you get a beer from me.
Awesome. Excellent. Observability.
Next one is on me.
He's been practicing. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show today. We really, 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 really appreciate it. This was an awesome show. Just want to say thanks to all of our listeners again. And as we were discussing before we started, I think we're like somewhere over 8 years on the show. So thanks for everyone who's made that all possible. And thanks to wonderful guests like you. I'm going to try it. Rainer?
Exactly.
Oh,
Rainer is perfect.
Rainer, there we go. All right. I've been having trouble with that name, people who are listening. So that doesn't seem like it should, but anyway, it's just me. I'm a stupid American. Thank you all for listening. Thanks everyone for being part of this, and we will see you next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.